VegInspired video. Today we're making bean salad. We are going to modify my grandma's 3-bean salad. She called it a calico bean salad recipe. We're gonna modify it. So sit with me and let's get into this. All right. Hello, hello, hello. Let me know where you are tuning in from. I am coming to you from Western Pennsylvania, Northwestern Pennsylvania. We got here on Friday and we already have done a hike and hit up 2 restaurants with vegan options. It is a really great place to be able to explore and check out some new things. So let me know where you're tuning in from. What we're gonna do for this bean, so I wanted to leave as much of this unprepped as I could for you so that you could kind of watch me through multiple parts of the steps. I think sometimes we watch somebody on YouTube cooking and they've got everything already prepped and ready to go. So you miss the cutting, you miss the washing, you miss like some of the other pieces. And so I wanted to do a little bit of that for you today. So, but of course, my camera angles aren't going to let you actually see me wash because we're going to do that over here. But the first thing I've done is I have all of my beans from cans. They're just canned beans. This is a canned bean salad. And so I'm going to drain them. So I have my strainer. I'm going to dump them in the sink and then rinse them. So when I'm draining and rinsing my beans, I'm running them with cold water and I'm getting all the beans out of the can. I want to make sure that there's no beans left in the can, and then I want the water running off the beans to be clear. I don't want it to be still whatever color the bean is. So like with kidney beans, I don't want it to be red. With the like if I'm doing black beans, I wouldn't want it to still be black. I want it to be clear. So then I'm just going to drain and rinse my beans and put them in there. So that was 1 can of red kidney beans. Then I'm going to put in 1 can of cut green beans. I'm just going to drain those. Now I like to rinse these beans as well. Just give them a quick rinse. If you prefer frozen veggies, you could use thawed frozen beans. I would probably cook them a little bit, maybe blanch them, or yeah, I would probably cook them. If you use fresh beans, like maybe you can get green and yellow fresh beans, I would definitely cook them and let them cool. So then the last can of beans are yellow or wax beans. And again, just a quick drain and a quick rinse. Now these don't have as thick of a liquid as like the beans, like your black beans or your kidney beans or anything like that. But so in here we have red kidney beans, yellow wax beans, and green cut green beans. So that's what's in the bowl so far, and we've drained and rinsed all of those. Now if you are sitting there thinking, and feel free, if you have questions, drop your questions in the live chat. Let me know. That's why I'm here. I want to be able to answer your questions. That's why we cook together. I could easily film this and just pop it up, but I want to be here for you. I want to be answering your questions. I want to be talking and having a conversation. So we've got our beans in here. If you don't like kidney beans, you could substitute chickpeas. If you would rather use black-eyed peas, you could use that. Like, you can use whatever your favorite bean is, right? This is a very forgiving recipe. In fact, in my grandma's, in the notes on the recipe, chickpeas were also in there. So you could actually make it a 4-bean salad if you wanted to. I left it as a 3-bean salad, but you could add chickpeas in addition to the kidney, the green, and the yellow beans. So let me just pull these cans back over here, just so you guys can remember what beans we used. And you can't really see them, but I'll move them back. Okay, there you go. Green, yellow, kidney. Awesome. Then we're going to put in 1 cup of onion, just a regular old yellow onion, cut kind of fine. Just going to throw that in there. If you prefer red onion, go for red, white, green onion. You could do that. I don't know if I do a whole cup of green onion. That might feel like a lot, but you could do half and half. You could do some green and some yellow. Then I wanted to save this part for you. So we're also going to cut up some celery. And let me know where you're tuning in from. I said it earlier. I'm coming to you from Eastern, I I think I said Western last time. Eastern Pennsylvania, northeastern Pennsylvania, all the way in the northeastern part of Pennsylvania. That's where I'm coming to you from. I'm gonna cut up some celery, but before I do, I wanna give it a wash. Now, how I wash my vegetables is this is a mix of vinegar and water. So white vinegar and water, and I just give them a quick spray, and then I just kind of wash them, and then I rinse this off of them. And I wanted to show this to you because I think, again, these are the parts that many of us miss. Hi, Dolores, Michigan. Dolores is in Michigan. Yes, coming to us from Michigan. I know as I move east, I'm getting further and further away from the Midwest, which is where we spent last summer. It was so fun. But we're not headed there this summer. So, but one of the reasons why I wanted to show you guys how I wash and prep my vegetables is because just getting on here with all of this already cut and prepped, I don't know how much that helps you. Like, what do you want to see in these videos? Like, I want to make it real-time cooking, as if you just popped into my kitchen and here I was cooking. So celery, I just cut the celery ribs into thin strips. And we need about a cup of celery. So it's the 3 cans of beans, kidney, yellow, and green. And then a cup of celery and a cup of onion so far. And then we're gonna do some bell pepper as well. But I wanted to give you as much of the behind the scenes. Like, you just showed up in my kitchen. Maybe you're in the RV next door. If the windows were open, they would be getting a cooking show as well, because the blinds are all open so that we have lots of light in here so that you can see me. So then I just thinly cut. I know this isn't as easy to see with the bowl in the way. Let me move that. Then I just cut my ribs of celery. And then I just run the knife through, nice even strokes. I did take a culinary class on knife skills because our knives are really sharp. That's one of the kitchen tools that, you know, John really makes sure we have sharp knives that will work well for the veggies and the things that we cut. And so having good knife skills when you have sharp knives is a key. So we're gonna put the celery in here. Dolores says, I'm here for the dressing recipe. Yes. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited. I'm so excited to share the dressing recipe because that's the most exciting part, because really this salad, so when I got this recipe from my mom, and it was my grandma's recipe, and also the cook at the restaurant that my grandfather owned and ran, she had a recipe from them as well that my mom shared with me. The recipe calls for like 2/3 of a cup of white sugar, just good old-fashioned white sugar. And I was like, that's a lot of sugar. I mean, that's a lot of sugar even if you eat sugar, but that's a real lot of sugar if you are whole food plant-based and don't eat like processed cane sugar. And I do eat a little sugar every now and then. I mean, I'm not afraid of sugar, but I really try to limit the quantity of sugar that I eat. If I'm gonna eat sugar, I want it to be in something that's, you know, hands down the best, most insane sugary recipe ever. Not in a salad that should be a healthy bean salad, and we're dumping in 2/3 of a cup of sugar. Dolores said, my grandmother and mother both made a 4-bean salad. I have fond memories. Ooh, what were the 4 beans? Did they put chickpeas in theirs? Because that was, like I said, there was they called it the calico bean, and there were chickpeas, but I kept it at 3 beans. So that was about 2 ribs of celery. We're gonna say that's a cup, and we're gonna go with it. Okay, and then the same washing prep for my green bell pepper. Just give it a quick spritz. Kind of wash it. Try not to get it on my iPad. The water. Oops, might have gotten it on there. And then, as I said, this is a 1/2 of a cup of the bell pepper. So I'm just gonna cut it. And I prefer organic green bell pepper. Of all the organic vegetables that I I mean, I'm a pretty much an organic vegetable purchaser. The green bell pepper is the one that I just do. Green bell pepper and celery are pretty much the two that I don't really compromise on. I find that they have a very different, organic green bell pepper is just so different to me than regular bell pepper. And so I prefer organic green bell pepper. That's what I buy. If I can't get an organic green bell pepper, I typically won't use it. I'll use red or something else. If you don't like green pepper, you could probably try this with red bell pepper or orange or yellow or whatever you can find. You can tell I get distracted. Can't get distracted when I'm cutting, so my talking slows down when the knife is getting closer to my fingers. It's kind of funny, which I suppose that happens in the kitchen too. Like if I'm talking to John and he would be talking to me right now, I would probably slow down talking and cut, and then pick back up with talking again in a minute. But yeah, so you could, if you couldn't find a green bell pepper, you could try a different color pepper. Like I said, I think the recipe tastes really good with the green bell pepper. So this is about a half of a cup of green pepper, which, as you saw, was about 2 edges of the bell pepper. This is celery. So it was about 2, like a half of the bell pepper was about a half a cup. Okay. So those are the salad ingredients. I mean, that's easy peasy, right? I did that and it's 7:42. I did that in 12 minutes, and a lot of it was me talking and washing and rinsing beans. Like, you could probably whip this up in 6 minutes. So that's a pretty fast recipe. And most of the ingredients could be in your pantry. Now, granted, you're going to need a fresh onion, but those last fairly long, so you could have a fresh onion in your pantry. You could just grab a green bell pepper for this recipe if you needed it, or you could make the whole recipe and grab a green bell pepper on the way to a party, right? That's one of the things that I really like about these pantry staple type recipes is you can have everything on hand, and then if you know you're going to make it, grab a green bell pepper. Or if you know there's a chance you might go to a picnic and you want a bean salad to take with you, you pick up a green bell pepper. So now let's get into the dressing. So the dressing is, again, very, very simple. Hi, Roxy. And for any of you watching, if you have questions, drop them in the live chat. If you want to tell us where you're tuning in from, I'm coming to you from all the way in Eastern PA right now, Northeastern PA. But the dressing for this is really simple. Even in the card my mom sent, it was apple cider vinegar, it was sugar, and oil. Well, in a whole food plant-based way of eating, we don't really eat oil. I don't eat oil, especially in a salad dressing, especially the quantity of oil that was in it. So I had to find a modifier for that. And in the past, I've used the juice from a can of chickpeas, which would work, but I've been trying to find alternatives to that, right? If you watched my live with Dina, I was kind of blown away by what she was saying with the bean juice. And so I've just kind of been, not my live with Dina, but my video with Dina, Dina's Vegan Deli and Desserts, and I've kind of just been trying to find alternatives to oil in my salad dressings and dressing recipes. So I found an alternative, applesauce. Now, this works in this recipe, and I'm not gonna blend it. You could blend it, but it works in this recipe because there's already textures in the recipe. I did try this recipe with dates in the blender, and it was a no-go for me. It just had, the dates provided too caramely of a flavor, and I personally didn't like it. So we're gonna start with the dressing with half a cup of apple cider vinegar. This is a pretty forgiving recipe. I probably don't need to measure exactly and bend over like that, but I'm, creature of habit, and so that's what happens. And then we're gonna do half a cup of applesauce. So I'm just gonna add enough applesauce to bring it to the 1 cup mark so that it's basically equal parts. You could also weigh this Good? So far we have half a cup of apple cider vinegar, half a cup of applesauce. Now, the last step is the sugar, and again, or the sweetener. I tried it with dates. I really wanted to like it with dates. I put the dates in the blender. I used like 5 or 6 dates, really trying to get it sweet because again, it was 2/3 of a cup of sugar. But there was just, first of all, it was very caramely. And second of all, there was just, it just didn't, I don't know, it didn't work. It just didn't work. So I tried it with agave, which if you're, I'm vegan, so I don't use honey. But if you use a local honey, you could probably use honey too. And while you're probably sitting there thinking, Kathy, that's just like liquid sugar. It is. I mean, really, it's a sweetener. That's what the whole point of it is to sweeten things. The we aren't going to use 2/3 of a cup, first of all. And the applesauce adds some sweet as well. So we're going to start with 1/3 of a cup of agave, which again, probably feels like a lot. You could start with 1/4 of a cup and then add more. I liked it with 1/3 of a cup, so I'm going to do 1/3 of a cup. And if you try it and think it's too sweet, then your palate has definitely adjusted, and you could start with 1/4 of a cup or even 3 tablespoons. But for me, I was trying to get the nostalgia of the recipe, which is a very sugary, sweet bean salad. If you do 1/3 of a cup and it's not sweet enough, you could add a little more. This is, again, half of the amount of sugar that the recipe calls for because the applesauce adds a sweetness that obviously the oil didn't. So I'm just gonna dump this in up to the 1/3 cup. Again, it's probably, I don't have to measure bending over, but I did. And then we're just gonna whisk it really, really well. When I made it one time, I had a mason jar and I was able to shake it, and that worked really well. If you have an immersion blender, you could zap it with an immersion blender. It doesn't need to be blended because again, there's so much texture in the salad that you don't even really notice the mouthfeel of the applesauce. We want to whisk it really well. And then we're just gonna dump it in and mix it together. I mean, you guys, it's really that simple. So I'm just gonna dump it in. Just wanna make sure I got all the goodness out of here. Whisking it really well helps to keep the bowls clean. And then we just, now, this salad is gonna taste delicious when I give it a taste in a little bit, but it's going to taste even better tomorrow. When it sits overnight, it just gets this nice marinade kind of flavor and everything just kind of blends in really, really well. The last thing we're going to do is we're gonna salt and pepper it to taste. Now I like to start with about 1/4 of a teaspoon of both salt and pepper, putting that in the recipe, and then salting and peppering to taste again tomorrow. You may need maybe a couple more cracks of pepper, so maybe 1/8 of a teaspoon more, or just a couple shakes. It's about 1/4 of a teaspoon of that. And then about 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt. If you don't use salt, you can skip the salt. You could make a little miso water mixture. So now I'm just mixing this together. Did I try maple syrup? I did not try maple syrup because I was worried the flavor would be too strong as well. I was afraid it would be too mapley, which again, there's probably nothing wrong with that, but I just wasn't sure it would, wasn't sure it was the right fit. When we were working on this recipe, I had John tasting like the different variations, and this variation, he said, oh, I could eat that every day, which again, it has 1/3 of a cup of agave. I probably could eat it every day because it's like a dessert salad. Not really, but I mean, it is dispersed among 3 cans of beans, a cup of onion, a cup of celery, and half a cup of bell pepper. Like, it's not like you're gonna sit down and eat this entire recipe in one sitting. I mean, this giant bowl will probably feed us for several days. I mean, that's 3 cans of beans. That's each of those cans is about 1.5 cups. So even if you ate a half a cup, or even if you ate a cup of this a day, you're talking about 4 or 5 days. So I'm going to taste it today because we're live and we need to taste it. And then I'll run through the ingredients again just so that you can get an idea of it if you were just joining in. But what I want to say is it is better the next day. I did not grab a fork. So let me grab a fork. Okay. So in our bean dip, we have 1 can of drained and rinsed kidney beans. We have 1 can of green beans, which if you don't want to use canned, you could use 1.5 cups of cooked fresh or cooked frozen. We have 1 can of yellow beans. And again, if you don't want to use canned, you could use cooked fresh or frozen. I would cook them though. I wouldn't just use them out of the freezer. Then we have 1 cup of onion, just regular old yellow onion is what I used, minced, finely minced. And then we have about 2 ribs of celery that equaled a cup. So a cup of celery, finely diced, I guess is a better way to describe it. And then about half of a bell pepper, which was about half of a cup, half of this size bell pepper. The bell pepper that I got last time was like, it was seriously like twice the size. So it really does depend. That's why I give you both this bell pepper, which is about the size of maybe a softball, maybe not as big as a softball, but and I use about half of it, but also the measurement because I want to make sure that you feel confident in making this recipe. And then in the dressing, it was half a cup of apple cider vinegar, half a cup of applesauce, and 1/3 cup of agave. And then we put in about 1/4 teaspoon of salt and pepper to taste, that you could then add more salt and pepper as the time goes on. So I'm going to give it a taste. It's so good. It is pretty sweet, so you probably could get away with 1/4 cup of agave. It's just, I really like the sweetness, and that's the nostalgia of the recipe, but I don't miss the oil. I think the applesauce plays in perfectly with the apple cider vinegar and then the sweetener. What I love too is that like tangy spice of the raw onion. Like a lot of people will say, oh, I don't like onion in my salads because I don't like it raw. But this is it really balances the salad out. So I would say if you don't love raw onion, maybe try, like I said earlier, half green onion and half of the raw, or you could rinse your raw onion so it's not as bitey. But the onion is one of the balancing features of the recipe, especially in this recipe where we used applesauce, which is naturally sweet. And again, it's unsweetened applesauce. So it was just unsweetened applesauce, regular old apple cider vinegar, agave, and salt and pepper. And I think the 1/4 teaspoon of the salt and pepper is great. John would probably add a little more pepper. I also read somewhere that you could add jalapeno. That's not my vibe, but if that's your vibe, you could spice it up a little bit. Again, it's a new recipe. That would be changing it significantly from the recipe that my grandma made, but you could, if you like a little spice, you could spice it up. So you guys, this is it. Easy peasy. I can't wait to hear if you try the applesauce, apple cider vinegar, and agave combination and what you think of it. Dolores says, guess who's going to Meijer after this live to purchase a few ingredients. Oh, I'm so excited. I hope you love it as much as I do. Like I said, I personally think it's better the next day. So I will transfer this to a Tupperware or a Pyrex container, and we will actually eat this tomorrow. And what I was going to tell you is we're going to eat it tomorrow with quinoa. If you wanted to take this recipe and make it heartier, again, the recipe is a bean salad. There is starch and fiber in the beans. Like, you don't have to amp it up with a potato or anything like that. But if you wanted additional starch, like I follow the starch solution. So for me, I'm always looking for ways to add more starch. So if you wanted, you could throw some quinoa right in the recipe. You could throw some couscous in. You could throw in some cooked potato, right? This is where I want to give you ideas to be able to say, how else could I make this recipe fit the way I eat? Right? I'm a starch-based eater. So for me, how can I make this recipe fit my starch-based way of eating? Right? You could eat this over a salad if you wanted to eat more greens, right? You could eat this. Honestly, this would be delicious with spinach or kale that you like put it on there, and there's enough dressing in the bottom that you could easily dress the include the dressing and have the salad in it as well. So this is going to soak all up into this dressing is going to soak all up into these beans, and it's going to be a delicious, tasty treat. Tomorrow, like I said, we're going to eat it with quinoa, sweet potatoes, and some greens that we got from the farmer's market. But that's it. That's my recipe. Does anybody have any questions about it? Again, I wanted to keep it as simple as the original recipe. And like I said, you could throw chickpeas in it. They were optional. But as Dolores said, her family made the one with 4 beans, and that had chickpeas in it. So you could do the same thing, but with chickpeas, and it would be good. Awesome. Oh my goodness. I'm so excited to have this finally out for you. We will be dropping another recipe later this week that is made with basil. So I'm super excited to share that with you. You could guess in the comments if you want, but I'm not gonna reveal anything. But I have my basil sitting over there, and I keep watching it because I want to film the recipe when it's not hot. So I'll probably do it like some morning, like 7 in the morning. I'll be cooking up some dish with basil. Almost slipped. Roxy says this is a delicious salad. Thank you so much. It is a really delicious salad. I'm so excited to share this recipe with you all. So we will be here with a video, not a live. I won't be cooking up live in the morning, but I'll film the video and post that up on YouTube later this week. And then we'll be back next week, Monday, for another delicious recipe to help you eat more plants. So that's all I have today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I always love Mondays and look forward to this and chatting with you and spending time with you. So I hope you have a fantastic night. And until next time, eat more plants, live veg inspired, and have a great day. Bye.